I think for many of us, it's very hard to talk about attachment wounds, attachment injuries, attachment trauma, to explain it, to even know what it is, to have language. And this becomes all the more important when you're trying to explain it to someone you're in relationship with, or your insecurities, attachment distress triggers happen, that the distress becomes triggered. And what can unfold is a obscuring or a complication to getting close, maintaining closeness, offering emotional openness, being able to receive the invitations, the bids for connection from another person you're dating, from a partner, could be a friend. This is also, think in terms of in your family, to still be in relationship. So I think a lot for this video, I'm going to talk more about in context of partner relating, but it shows up in many different ways. And we can, depending on your level of sensitivity, depending on your level of integration of your attachment wounds, and even just your awareness, that sometimes it can really feel like we are a puppet, or we are, it's almost like there's this cord, an electric cord that you sometimes just gets unplugged, and your energy, I often refer to this as your sense of self implodes. It's a shutting down feeling. So I know this personally for myself. I can be interacting, I can be engaging, I can feel present, things feel fine, things feel normal. And then something can be said, or something happens that obscures understanding, and it goes beyond logic. It's not just a cognitive understanding of what was said, or if I misunderstood what was said. It can feel like I have no control, and that the electric cord gets pulled out from the wall socket, and all the energy drains very quickly. And sometimes I can feel the experience of being frozen. Sometimes it's an experience of being numb. Sometimes it comes with waves of discomfort, a kind of prickly feeling. We call this all distress. It's distressing. It's kind of like anxiety. It can move in the direction, um, but it's not, doesn't have to necessarily be an active wave of feeling anxious. But there's a very unsettled feeling. I'm not me. I'm not in my body. I'm not in my skin. Something is wrong. And it's like in that moment, that from that point forward, any interaction that I'm having with another person, usually a partner, usually a family member, a close friend. And what this means is that people who I share some level of intimacy and vulnerability and openness and connection. And from that moment forward, when this shutting down and imploding occurs, I can't continue in the conversation about the thing that we're talking about. I need to shift to naming the interaction. I need to figure out, okay, what just happened and why am I shutting down? Now, as you can imagine, this is incredibly awkward, or also unfortunate, because it can halt the flow of the organic interaction, and feeling like we're relating as friends, relating as being part of the family. And when this occurs, it's like the needle on the record experience of like scratch, like you get pulled out of yourself, and there's a very strong emergency part of you, an observer self, a protector self that says, wait a minute, something's going on here. Now, we then often have to run through a protocol. And this is the part of the video. I don't know if you're aware of this. I don't know if you do this. These are like the strategies we can use to try to, what we need to do is we're starting to do reality testing. We're starting to look at, okay, how much is this me projecting and kind of making up something based upon fear or a perception? How much of this is because the person that I'm with has done something that's a boundary violation, that's inappropriate, that made me question the congruence of our interacting and our relating. Now, the thing is that, yes, I mentioned family relationships. Yes, I mentioned friend relationships. But I think perhaps you know this, many of us would say this level of intense internal implosion and shifting and shutting down and waves of fear don't really happen as frequently or to the degree in which they happen in our partner relationships. And so for that reason, many of us will say, but it's different. It's so different where, this kind of relating, I don't notice it and it doesn't impact me as much in friend and family relationships. Now, oftentimes, and again, I'm sure you know this, that the origin of these kind of attachment patterns are coming from childhood. And for that reason, we if we very much put ourselves back into a situation that simulates the childhood dynamic, then we could find ourselves getting activated. A number of us, what am I? Those of us with attachment injuries, and quite honestly, it's a large percentage of the population. Um, Supposedly, over 50% of people have like some kind of insecure attachment behaviors, styles, experience. So for that reason, when we start talking about that, we're saying like, well, yeah, it's about experiencing distress around vulnerability and distress around intimacy, and having some history where your attachment needs were interrupted, abandoned, neglected, where you were ignored in some capacity, and you really needed to figure out how are you going to continue to operate in this family system? How are you going to continue to get your attachment needs met, knowing that there's a limitation of how they're going to be received and the degree to it, there's an inconsistency. And so oftentimes the trigger itself is noticing an inconsistency in the pattern of relating. And this can sometimes show up as a tone of voice. This can show up as a facial expression, as eye contact. It could show up through body language. For some people, it shows up in the frequency of texting back and forth, that if there is a delay in the rhythm and the flow of the texting, all of a sudden it communicates something else. And this something else that it's communicating is, oh, all of a sudden you're not as available. All of a sudden you're not responding back to me. All of a sudden you're leaving me hanging. And it's those experiences when the flow of negotiating attachment needs, and this might literally be negotiating attachment needs, like, will you come over tonight? I would like to see you. Can we have dinner on Thursday? I love it when we sit next to each other on the sofa. Hey, let's go for a walk and hold hands. I love holding hands. That's very, very direct. And those are ways that we're getting our attachment needs met. But it could also be just a bit more subtle or not as obvious, but it means spending time together in any capacity, just letting the other person know that you want to connect with them and that they respond back in a reasonable amount of time. Usually it's a very short period of time that says, yes, of course, yes, I want to spend time with you. And if there's a delay in the yes, if there's delay in getting the affirmation that they want to see you, connect with you, communicate with you, talk to you, share your company, whatever it is, that's when your very fine-tuned radar nervous system can flare up and can begin beeping an emergency that says, okay, something is off here. So what are we looking for? We're looking for consistency of interacting and a shared understanding of the frequency to which we are consistently connecting. So a very easy example to explain here are long distance relationships, or let's say even if it's not long distance, but a relationship where you have kids, you have a job, you have all these other things to do. So there are clear boundaries about when you have time to spend with someone you're dating or someone that you're in a relationship with. And then there are very specific days and chunks of time where, nope, it's not going to happen. So what this would mean that when we know that we are going to spend time together, whatever the system, the shared calendar is that we both understand the frequency that we have of connecting. It's a rhythm, and it's in that rhythm. And notice how I'm like even like rocking my body the way you like kind of rock a child. It's like this rhythm of making sure that we're connecting with each other on a regular basis. That might be phone calls, that might be being in person, that might be going on dates. And whatever it is that we have this understanding. Many people don't really talk about this. Now, obviously, because this is my work, I talk about this. I'm very, very direct. And I think it's helpful to be direct, to say, like, I need consistency and I need to have a shared frequency of us, of our connecting and relating. And that frequency needs to be consistent. And if it is random, if there are surprises, if it gets interrupted without explanation, now we need to be reasonable, we need to be mature, we need to be objective and say, oh, look, the pattern got interrupted. We need to gather some information. We need to not jump to conclusions. We need to not be reactionary and say, hey, I noticed we were supposed to get together Thursday like we always do, and we have dinner, and you canceled it last moment, and you didn't explain why we're canceling. And the moment you canceled, I did feel a wave of some attachment distress. It made me a little cautious and a little nervous, and I didn't have a complete shutdown experience. I didn't melt into myself. I didn't wither away and become a puddle of confusion. But it does raise an alarm, because if the more advanced notice I have when we're canceling, that is comforting to my attachment system. And if we are going to be in relationship, I would like to invite you, I would like to negotiate with you that this is what we need to do, is just give each other clear warning, clear heads up. Now, of course, we can't always do that. And if we can't do that, then you have to know there's a sensitivity to acknowledge, I know that Thursday is our day. I know that we get together for dinner on Thursdays. I bet you were looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. I have some really bad news. I just got a surprise meeting that I have tomorrow, and I'm supposed to present, and I'm not prepared, and I have to do work, and I'm going to stay late at the office. And you know what? I can't meet tonight, and I really hope it's not too terribly disappointing, but it's disappointing to me. And I hope that that we can make up this missed time. And, tomorrow is Friday, and I would love, or not Friday, like if this is Thursday, I'm canceling Thursday, and then, whatever, the Friday, Saturday, let's have dinner then. And I'd love to make sure that that I want to be there and I want to show up. Now, here's the challenge. I mean, all of this stuff is challenging, but one of the challenges here is, like, I've honed this language for 23 years, and I'm a therapist, and some of this language can sound, for me, it sounds normal, but I'm aware that many people will say, I don't talk like that, or they will say that their partner doesn't talk like that. Now, my response is, of course, yes, of course. And you have got to channel it through your own language in your own way of speaking. You've got to maybe also practice taking on some of the approach, the phraseology, the ideas that I'm sharing. And how can you find the ones that are least clinical or least, I don't even think they're clinical, but again, I'm biased, but that they sound more everyday, casual, pedestrian, or the way you would speak to your partner and the way that your partner speaks to you. Now, some people, maybe this is your partner, maybe this is you, don't really have this language at all, and so like really don't know what to say at all. So if that's the case, I'm really going to say, please be awkward. Please put your foot in your mouth. Please say, go ahead and preface it by saying, I'm going to sound like I'm an Instagram post about healing, and I'm going to talk about relationship that's going to sound really, really weird because we don't talk like this. But I got to figure out how to communicate this to you. And there's this thing called distress. It's called attachment distress, and it comes and goes and comes and goes and comes and goes, and it can be here on a daily basis, it can be here every week. It just goes through this process where sometimes I'm very fearful about our level of intimacy and vulnerability and connection, and I at times just feel generally insecure. And I don't mean insecure as a person, it's not like a personality trait. I feel insecure about making sure that we have open communication, and that our bond, our the quality of our attachment bond is secure, is safe, is reliable, is trustworthy. And because of my history in my family and my history of adult relationships that hasn't really fully worked out for me, or seems to have a kind of ongoing amount of stress and challenges. And that's why you and I are in a relationship, because I want to do it different and I don't want these same challenges to repeat. So what happens is I'm a bit predisposed to having this distress and this fear around relationship just kind of hijack my brain in a way that takes over, and I might get really, really, really quiet. I might get aggressive and mean and slam cupboard doors. And when my attachment needs aren't getting met, I get a little more pissy and demanding. Um, I might I might act more controlling. That if I'm not getting my attachment needs met and I have this wave of fear, it's very possible that I overcompensate by trying to be more controlling. And I'll look as if I'm micromanaging the moment, or really demanding how I want to be treated, trying to like control an outcome. You'd be surprised. Some people, this shows up as road rage. Like two people are on a date, they're driving somewhere, and something happens that they don't like, the car in front of them, they're it's always their fault and they're a bad driver, and the person in the driver's seat just completely freaks out. Well, it's possible they're not really freaking out about the driver, or it's not really road rage. They're trying to manage the amount of tension or fear that they have in the relationship. The attachment distress has somehow shown up that evening, and instead of picking a fight with you, they're picking a fight with the driver in front of them, and it's just a way to like deflect all of that built up tension and aggression. Now, it's also possible that attachment distress shows up as apathy. And for me personally, on the receiving end, this one is really hard, because apathy makes the other person appear like they do not care, and that it's very like, whatever, yeah, we're gonna meet on okay, well, yeah, sure, we can meet on Thursday, or we'll meet on Saturday. Maybe I'll call you on Sunday. That's a certain strategy that people use to manage vulnerability and intimacy, that essentially everyone has a kind of sweet spot or a comfort zone where we can tolerate, like intimacy. We move into intimacy, we move into feeling emotionally vulnerable, and there are degrees. And all of us have an edge that when you reach that edge, that degree, and you think, I can't handle this anymore, too much. I just got too much, I got to pull back. So in those moments when the attachment connection, the vulnerability is too much and too intense, we might resort to these behaviors to manage the intimacy. So one is become controlling, that I already talked about. One could be apathy, to a fear, completely not very interested at all. And it's a kind of shutdown. It's a shutdown behavior. There's also a strategy, and many of these are subconscious. People don't go into thinking this, but another one is forgetfulness. Like, oh, we're having dinner on Thursday? Oh, I thought it was Friday. Okay, I'll have to change my schedule then. Well, I thought you were going to get back to me. And the person says these things, and it creates a lot of confusion for everybody. Like, did I say that? Was it unclear? No, it was pretty clear. I thought, I made reservations at the Italian restaurant. I don't know how more clear can it be. So forgetfulness is another way that people try to manage their attachment distress. Another one that we have is a rigidity and a rejection, which even the word to hear that is painful, ouch. But a rigidity around, if something doesn't go your way, if something doesn't flow smoothly, it's kind of, I'm getting the image of childhood, and this actually happened to me and my family. But playing Monopoly, playing any game, but my memory is we're playing Monopoly, and there's this moment where someone didn't like how the game is going, and so like grabs all the pieces and just like shuts the board, the Monopoly board, and says, I'm done. I'm not playing. This isn't fun anymore. I'm going for a bike ride. The game's over. And so that very quick, and I say this lovingly, the word I'm going to use is not a judgment, but it's something that happens. And the word is a temper tantrum. Sometimes when we can't manage our attachment distress, or we perceive someone has disappointed us, or maybe they have disappointed us. It's not just a perception, it's happened. But instead of being able to talk through it and make peace with it, and to manage the intensity of the nervous system activation in your body, there's a very rigid response, a reactionary response that just says, I'm just going to reject this moment. I'm just going to reject you. I'm going to push you away. Now, when this happens a lot, the other person on the receiving end is very, very confused, because you are going to start coming across, you are presenting yourself as hot and cold, as extreme, as black and white. And the other person, what oftentimes we hear is they start saying, like, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells with you, and I just don't know if I'm going to say something that all of a sudden is going to set you off. And then through your rigidity, your inability to dialogue about how scared you feel, about how hurt you feel, maybe even acknowledging and creating the awareness and the discernment that this isn't about us. This is about your past. This is about your childhood. This is you bringing an old experience, an old blueprint, an old template. You're transferring that history onto us in this moment, but then you're relating to me as if I am the enemy, and as if through this hot, cold, intense rigidity, you then need to reject me and say, well, if that's the case, this conversation's over. We're not talking on the phone. Well, if that's the case, then just get your coat. Let's leave the restaurant. We'll take you, and you immediately tell the waiter, you say, we've changed our mind. I want our food to go. Put it in to go containers. And you just really dramatically shut down the interaction because you can't handle the intensity of that distress. So on this video, we've talked about ways we're managing our attachment distress. We have control. controlling behaviors. We have apathy. We have forgetfulness. What are we talking about today? We have a rigidity and a rejection. And the last one that I want to talk about is busyness. We can even go in the direction talking about workaholism, any kind of, process addiction becomes a substitute for direct experience, that we create a buffer between ourselves and life and the other person so that we're not experiencing it directly. We're experiencing it through the lens, through the buffer, through the obstacle of the process addiction. We're allowing something to get in the way so that we don't actually have to feel the experience of the intensity of what we're feeling. So think of people, how this shows up. I mean, you could be a workaholism in your workaholic, or chronically busy in your job. But let's say if you happen to live with a partner, you're married, let's say you're just visiting each other's home, and let's say one of you decides at 11 o'clock at night that we just got to do the laundry real quick, or let's make sure all the dishes are in the dish washer. And let's say the moment right before that would have been a lovely moment of sitting in quiet contemplation together in the living room, some low lighting, and you really get a chance to drop your guard and exhale together and go, oh, hi, honey, how are you? And some of us are very frightened of that moment of really being put on the spot to say, let's drop the guard. Let's just be here now. Let's not do the dishes. Let's not think about work. Dinner is finished. The day is over. And how are you? No, really, really. How are you? And I do hope that you ask the same question of me and we can have a meaningful connection. This is very frightening for some of us. And, or even if we say we want it, we attempt to do it, it's the kind of moment that sometimes can collapse very quickly. That if someone says the wrong thing, or we say the wrong thing, or having the skill to enter that slowed down pace of vulnerable, intimate, emotional openness, just hearing that, some people completely shut down and they pop up and say, I got to do the laundry. I really, let's get the laundry done so that tomorrow we're ready to go, that we can go hiking. And then this hiking idea even is like, let's keep moving. Let's keep it moving. Let's make sure we're busy. As long as we're busy and moving, we don't really have to connect. We don't really have to see each other. I can keep fancy footwork going so that we never really fully are available to each other. All of these things I'm talking about are ways that we manage this distress, and we're trying to negotiate coming together, being open, but also needing to slowly take breaks and to separate from each other. And then you come back and say, hey, how was your day? How are you doing? What helps our nervous system, what helps our attachment system, I've already said it, is that if we can do this with a sense of frequency and a consistency, and when it is very random or out of the blue, or there's these immediate changes in the flow of the pattern, those of us with insecure attachment systems, nervous systems, our mind, like a radar, like a very fine-tuned, hyper-vigilant radar, we pick up these changes. Oh, wait a minute, something changed. All of a sudden, I'm noticing a disconnect in a way that we, up to this point, had been connecting. And many of us then need to research that. We can't just let it go. It's almost like the phrase "a dog with a bone." Our brain latches onto it, and it's also what we need reassurance. And say, hey, remember that moment 5 minutes ago when you said XYZ? Well, I misunderstood. I might have misunderstood it, but I perceived what you're saying is that you somehow were trying to tell me that you didn't want to spend time with me, or that you're going to cancel our upcoming trip in a week and a half, or that you're actually trying to plant the seeds that you want to go out with your friend next weekend, so you're not available to go out with me. I was just picking up, there seems to be a shift in your availability, and I would like to see if I'm making that up, or I'd like to see if I'm actually picking up on something that we just have to negotiate. If we just be transparent, the word here is transparent. Why am I making this video? Hopefully to give you language. I mean, this is what we do in therapy, is that clients talk about they say, well, the other day I was having dinner with my partner, and we go through the scenario and say, oh, it's attachment distress again. And you felt triggered. And were you able to communicate it? Were you able to feel it? Were you able to show up for yourself? Were you able to hold true to your boundaries of your values of what you want in relationship? And ultimately, was your partner able to hear you and receive your request for connection? And this is what repair is, because this level of sensitivity, of distress, really isn't going away. We are prone to this kind of activation. So it's not so much about let's just plow through and get rid of or override the activation. It's more of like, how can you work with it to understand and to offer empathy and gentleness? Make sure you have to go inward for yourself to square away some reality testing of how much you're exaggerating, or even something about your perception that you're increasing the intensity, and then also gathering data from your partner, from the person you're dating, from a family member, or if it's happening with a friend, and you have to find out, okay, is it me, or is it them, or is it us? I hope that this video is helpful. I'm really trying to create language that you can start practicing voicing. If someone puts you on the spot and says, hey, what is attachment trauma? How does it show up in your life? And very specifically when you're dating, when you're in a relationship. And here's the key word that I love. This is a word for me. You don't have, but this is what I think is important. Unapologetic. I am unapologetic that I have attachment injuries, attachment wounds, and sometimes shows up in the symptoms of attachment trauma. I'm unapologetic about it. It just happens. It's the way my brain is coded. It's part of my history. Ta-da! And I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel shame about it. I don't cower and hide. It's like, look, this is what happens. So the more, if I want to be in a relationship, I need to pick a partner and be the partner who has a sensitivity that this happens. Now, usually we're going to pick a partner who has their own version of this. So how wonderful. You both can just be open about it. And then it becomes a way to track and monitor the ebb and flow, the shifts, the change, which sometimes is tiring. Let me really be honest. It can get really tiring that this happens. You go on vacation, you go for a weekend away, you're staying at the hotel, everything's wonderful, and something happens where like a ton of bricks falls on your chest. Ugh. And it feels like, oh great, I'm ruining the weekend. Of course I'm laughing because I've done this. or it has done it to me. I say that because it's not like we don't choose it. We don't try. We don't say let's go on a really fun weekend getaway and then totally implode into attachment distress and ruin the whole evening. I mean, no one sets out to do that. But hey, this is why relationships, as much as I'm not a fan of the phrase work, but we'll say this is why relationships take work in this context. So I hope that this is helpful. I am Alan Robarge. I'm doing this new thing, somewhat new for me, where I don't share who I am at the beginning of the video. Because usually it's rushed and I kind of just like blurt it out. So here are what I thought. If you don't know who I am Alan Robarge. I'm an attachment-focused psychotherapist and a relationship educator. I've been making videos for a while and took a little time off and trying to make more videos again. And I work with people, the phrase that I came up with, and it's true to my experience, and it's a phrase, it sounds a little dramatic, but it's really visceral. I work with people who die inside when relationships end, or who are already suffocating before the end. So we get stuck in these relationships that are not good for us, and we kind of we wilt, our spirit wilts, we lose our sense of self. Very, very painful stuff. And when that happens, we struggle to get out of the relationship because we don't have a self that has agency to move us forward beyond the current situation. So when this happens, we feel incredibly hurt. So I help those of us who are hurt by love, who need to rebuild what the heartbreak shattered. And in the process of, I love this image of mosaic pieces. You pull back, you figure out what piece to keep, what piece to get rid of, and you're forging a new sense of self. And this is the transformation process. It's always about becoming, and learning the skills of communicating attachment needs and the awareness of how to stand up to attachment distress and talk about attachment distress before we get stuck in a relationship that's not meeting our attachment needs or is actually hurting us or suffocating our spirit. That's why we need these skills. So that's the work that I do. More videos on the way. Thank you for watching this, and I will see you next time.